नमस्ते। राष्ट्रीय पांडुलिपि मिशन के तत्वबोध व्याख्यानमाला के अंतर्गत आयोजित आज के इस सत्र में मैं आप सभी विद्वज्जनों का स्वागत करता हूं। आज का विषय है औपनिवेशिक तिक्रम, अल्पज्ञात लेखकों द्वारा रचित एक पांडुलिपि और वक्ता हैं प्रोफेसर तपती मुखर्जी, उपाध्यक्ष एशियाटिक सोसाइटी कोलकाता। आज के सत्र की अध्यक्षता करेंगे प्रोफेसर सच्चिदानंद जोशी, जो इंदिरा गांधी राष्ट्रीय कला केंद्र के सदस्य सचिव हैं। जैसा कि आप जानते हैं, मिशन की स्थापना संस्कृति मंत्रालय भारत सरकार 2003 में पांडुलिपियों के संरक्षण और भारत की विशाल पांडुलिपि संपदा में सन्निहित ज्ञान को अनावृत करने के उद्देश्य से की गई। संप्रति मिशन इंदिरा गांधी राष्ट्रीय कला केंद्र के एक विभाग के रूप में कार्य कर रहा है। भारत में पांडुलिपियों का एक लंबा इतिहास है। देश की मौखिक परंपराओं को कॉम्प्लीमेंट करती ये पांडुलिपियां दर्शन, धर्मशास्त्र, कला, साहित्य और विज्ञान के रूप में विविध ज्ञान को समेटे हुए है। भारत के पास 1 करोड़ से अधिक पांडुलिपियों के होने का अनुमान है, जो शायद दुनिया का सबसे बड़ा संग्रह विभिन्न भाषा, लिपि एवं विषयों में होने के कारण अभी तक हम कुछ ही पांडुलिपियों तक पहुंचे हैं। इसके लिए जन जागरण की जरूरत है। जीवन यापन से संबंधित ऐसा शायद ही कोई विषय हो जो हमारी पांडुलिपियों में नहीं है, और इसी उद्देश्य से मिशन ने 2005 में तत्वबोध व्याख्यानमाला का आयोजन शुरू किया। तत्वबोध का अर्थ है ज्ञान के आधारभूत तत्व को समझना। अभी तक हुए व्याख्यानों को तत्वबोध प्रकाशन श्रृंखला के अंतर्गत 8 वॉल्यूम में प्रकाशित किया जा चुका है और वह मिशन के वेबसाइट पर पढ़ने के लिए उपलब्ध है। कोविड महामारी के कारण हमने मई 2020 में तत्वबोध का ऑनलाइन सीरीज शुरू की। हर एक महीने के अंतिम सप्ताह में हम देश के मूर्धन्य विद्वानों को इस कार्यक्रम के माध्यम से जोड़ने का प्रयास करते हैं। आपका सहयोग इसमें नहीं है। आज की वक्ता हैं प्रोफेसर तपती मुखर्जी। प्रोफेसर ताप्ती मुखर्जी ने कलकत्ता विश्वविद्यालय से संस्कृत में स्नातकोत्तर और जादवपुर विश्वविद्यालय से तुलनात्मक साहित्य में एमफिल और पीएचडी किया है। उन्होंने 22 पुस्तकों का लेखन और संपादन किया और उनके 75 से अधिक लेख प्रकाशित हो चुके हैं। प्रोफेसर मुखर्जी 2002 में विजय कृष्ण गर्ल्स कॉलेज में प्रिंसिपल और 2008 में रविंद्र भारती विश्वविद्यालय में रजिस्ट्रार के रूप में नियुक्त हुई। वह सिद्धो कान्हो बिरसा विश्वविद्यालय पुरुलिया की संस्थापक कुलपति हैं। 2012 में वह विश्व भारती में कल्चर एंड कल्चरल रिलेशंस विभाग के निदेशक एवं रविंद्र भवन के प्रधानाचार्य के रूप में शामिल हुई। उन्होंने भारत और विदेशों में आयोजित विभिन्न राष्ट्रीय और अंतर्राष्ट्रीय सम्मेलनों में विभिन्न विषयों को प्रस्तुत किए और कई महत्वपूर्ण सत्रों की अध्यक्षता की। संप्रति वह एशियाटिक सोसाइटी कोलकाता की वाइस प्रेसिडेंट, संस्कृत साहित्य परिषद कोलकाता की प्रेसिडेंट एवं कंपैरेटिव लिटरेचर एसोसिएशन ऑफ इंडिया की वाइस प्रेसिडेंट हैं। प्रधानमंत्री द्वारा घोषित पंचप्रण में औपनिवेशिकता से मुक्ति प्रमुख है। इस संदर्भ में बारीकियों को समझने में हमारी मदद करेगा। आपने व्याख्यान के लिए समय और स्वीकृति दी। मिशन आपका आभारी है और आपका स्वागत करता है। आज के अध्यक्ष हैं प्रोफेसर सच्चिदानंद जोशी, जो कुछ ही समय में शायद हमारे साथ जुड़ेंगे। वह एक कुशल प्रशासक के साथ साथ शिक्षाविद, कलाविद, साहित्यकार, इतिहासकार, लेखक और कवि हैं। आपकी कई कहानी संग्रह और कविता संग्रह प्रकाशित हो चुकी हैं। आपके द्वारा हाल ही में संपादित पुस्तक कनेक्टिंग थ्रू कल्चर एन ओवरव्यू ऑफ इंडियाज सॉफ्ट पावर स्ट्रेंथ्स की काफी प्रशंसा हो रही है। आपके संरक्षण में मिशन का कार्यकलाप अग्रसर हो रहा है। आपने इस कार्यक्रम की अध्यक्षता स्वीकार की, इसके लिए मिशन आपका आभारी है और आपका स्वागत करता है। मैडम, अब आप शुरू कर सकती हैं। सर बीच में ज्वाइन करेंगे। थैंक यू।
थैंक यू। नमस्कार। नमस्कार। Respected Chairperson Dr. Sachchidanand Joshi, Member Secretary, IGNCA, New Delhi, Revered Professor Pratapanand Jha, Director, National Manuscript Mission, my distinguished colleagues of National Manuscript Mission, Dr. Sanghamitra Basu, and Professor Dr. Hawk, and many others, and at the same time, the august audience who are listening to this lecture demonstration. First of all, happy Vijaya and Diwali greetings to all of you. Now, coming to my topic, we have already heard from Professor Jha that it is colonial maneuvering, a manuscript, and its unsung authors. Today, I am going to present before you primarily one manuscript, which is not only important for its archaic value, but also a very significant treasure because of its historical and socio-legal perspective. At the same time, the authors or compilers of this manuscript, who are extremely important and significant because of the fact they had played a pivotal role in our legal system in British regime in 18th century. But unfortunately, they had been pushed into oblivion and are hardly remembered today. These scholars, these compilers will also feature in my presentation, despite the fact that we have very scanty information about them. Now we have to go back to pages of history to explore the importance of the manuscript in question. The name of the manuscript I will say later. Now, with the advent of the British in India in 1600, backed by a exclusive right of trading in India under a charter granted by Queen Elizabeth I, started a slow but gradual transformation in the societal and economic step of India. India is changing under the when the East India Company in the form of traders first came to India. In 1765, obtained the Diwani. What is that? That is the rights over revenue and civil justice of Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa, signaling thereby its rise as a territorial power. The Regulating Act of 1793 recognized for the first time the political and administrative functions of the company and designated the Governor of Bengal as the Governor General of Bengal. Warren Hastings was the first Governor General. In the meantime, the East India Company's Court of Directors notified the President and Council at Fort William College of their decision to take over the local administration of civil justice. The implementation part is left to the newly appointed Governor General Warren Hastings, who assumed the governorship in 1772. Now, the point is that prudent and far-sighted Hastings could easily realize that to consolidate British hegemony in India, a sound administrative and judicial system is imperative. It is essential to have a good administrative system. Equally important is the fact that the establishment of such a system should not, under any circumstance, hurt the sentiment of the local people. So, since it they were determined not to hurt the sentiment of local people. So British model of law may not be acceptable to the locals and may even lead to a flare-up against the British. So Hastings submitted his judicial plan, emphasizing thereby that, quote, all suits regarding the inheritance, marriage, caste, and other religious usages or institutions, the laws of the Quran with respect to Mohammedans and those of the Pastor with respect to the Gentus shall be invariably adhered to. On all such occasions, the Maulavis or Brahmins shall respectively attend to expound the law. They shall sign the report and assist to pass the degree, unquote. Now, the British has a problem. What is that problem? The problem is the British had hardly any access to the so-called Shastras. They are not conversant with Sanskrit. So they had no access to the so-called Shastras or religious and spiritual texts of the ancient Indians. So to solve this problem, Hastings appointed 11, I draw your attention to the number, 11 Pandits, that is Sanskrit scholars, to formulate a code of law which will be absolutely in tune with the ancient legal and juridical texts. Now, who are these Pandits? Whom did Hastings convene to frame a code of law? They are 11. I have already mentioned they are 11 in number. They are Baneshwar, Kriparam, Ram Gopal, Krishna Jibon, Bireshwar, Krishna Chandra, Gaurikanto, Kali, Shamsundar, Krishna Keshav, and Shitaram. They compiled a legal text, Bibadarnabo Setu. They compiled a legal text. You can see it on the screen. Bibadarnabo Setu, deriving facts, deriving their tenets from the prominent legal texts, Manu Sanghita, Jagyavalkya Smriti, Narada Smriti, Harita Smriti, along with Puranic texts, especially Brihad Dharma Purana. For understanding of the British, it was first translated to Persian via a Bengali oral version by Zaid-ud-Din Ali Rasai. Since they don't have any access to Sanskrit text, it was translated to Persian via a Bengali oral version by a Persian scholar. Then Nathaniel Bafre Halhead, we call him simply Halhead, translated this Persian text into English under the supervision of Hastings himself. The complete translation was available on 27th March 1775. It was printed in London in 1776, titled, you can see in the screen, as a code of Gentoo laws or ordinations of the Pandits. Now, I draw your attention to another very interesting fact. That is, if we have a cursory glance at the proceedings of the governor and council at Fort William respecting the administration of justice among the natives in Bengal, it shows the keenness, the eagerness of the rulers, that is the British, to administer justice to the so-called native Indians, strictly in tune with the principles of the ancient Indian juridical texts. I quote from the minutes. The 12th paragraph of a letter from the President and Council in Bengal for the Department of the Revenues to the Council of Directors, dated the 25th of March, 1773. At this meeting, it appearing to the members of the court that in order to render more complete the judicial regulations to preclude arbitrary and partial judgments and to guide the decisions of the federal courts, a well-digested code of law compiled agreeably to the laws and tenets of the Mohammedans and Gentus and according to the established customs and usages in the cases of the revenue, would prove of the greatest public utility. The court resolved that such a code should be prepared and properly digested, and they accordingly appointed, I draw your attention again to this line, and they accordingly appointed fit persons to execute this work by 3 distinct commissions. And a third of the most learned pundits or expounders to the Gentoo law. Now we are aware that it will be a work of time, but as and when completed, it promises to contribute essentially to the security of the property and persons of the subjects. We shall spare no pains to see it accomplished. Now, in this context, I cite a letter from Warren Hastings himself, designated as Governor General of Fort William in Bengal, to the Court of Directors of the United Company of Merchants of England trading to the East Indies. What is the purport of this letter? I quote from the original letter. Honorable Sir, I have now the satisfaction to transmit to you a complete and corrected copy of a translation of the Gentoo Code, executed with great ability, diligence, and fidelity by Mr. Halhead from a Persian version of the original Sanskrit, which was undertaken under the immediate guidance of the pundits or compilers of the work. Now, Hastings made a very important statement in the next para. He said, I could have wished to have obtained an omission or amendment of some paragraph to have rendered them more fit in the public eye. Now, but the pundits, when desired to revise them, could not be prevailed upon to make any, simply refused, the pundits simply refused to make any alteration, as they declared they had the sanction of their Shastras and were therefore incapable of amendment. They maintained their stance that Shastras can never be altered. Possibly, these may be considered as essential parts of the work, since they mark the principles on which many of the laws were formed and bear the stamps of a remote antiquity in which the refinements of society were less known and the manners were more influenced by the mutual impulse of the passions. Then he said, your most obedient Warren Hastings. The date of this letter is 27th March 1775. And this is from Fort William. Now, these lines quoted from Warren Hastings' letter, I did it purposely to show that this shows the determination and astuteness of our traditional pundits or scholars to protect with admiration their ancient tradition, even in the face of intervention from their rulers. That is an extremely important point to note. Now, I come to the original Vivadarnava Setu, the manuscript itself. In his preface to the translation, Halhead, I have mentioned earlier that Halhead had made an English translation of Sanskrit original via a Persian translation. And in his preface to the translation, Halhead emphasized the importance of the compilation of Vivadarnava Setu. I quote from Halhead: the importance of the commerce of India and the advantages of a territorial establishment in Bengal have at length awakened the attention of the British legislators to every circumstances that make the affections of the natives. They are not going to antagonize natives, but they are going to be in their favor or ensure stability to the acquisition. Nothing can so favorably conduce to those 2 points as a well-timed toleration in matters of religion and adoption of such original institutes of the country as do not immediately claim with the laws or interests of the. Halhead was also immensely impressed by the wisdom of our ancient Shastrakaras, of our ancestors, and he categorically refuted, this is a very important point, and he categorically refuted the charge that the ancient India did not have any legal text. He categorically refuted the charge and emphasized that yes, ancient India had their legal text and from which the tenets were derived to frame Vivadarnava Setu, which will be the foundation of the juridical procedure of India. Now, let us now have a look at the manuscript of Vivadarnava Setu. A complete manuscript is preserved in the archive of the Asiatic Society of Kolkata. Its details may be mentioned in a nutshell. Substance is country-made paper, folios is 135, lines 30 in a page, script is Bengali, condition is fair, extent complete. The script had been collected from Fort William College. Once again, this you can see in the screen, there just is a small stamp of the Fort William College. The manuscript starts with the following lines. I quote from the original manuscript. Om Namo Lipi Lambo Daraya Visheshang Saranang Navam Buddha Ruchi Sadasakta Chinta Maniriya Pratuha Tamo Vinasha Mihiraha Kinasha Bhinanaha Sangsaraika Maharanabe Nipatatang Nistaro Bijang Rinang Govinda Kripaya Surasura Ganair Bandya Shirang Patuba. This you can understand is simply benedictory words. In the next verse, the compiler authors mentioned the names of their predecessors from whom the Shastrakaras, ancient Indian Shastrakaras, from whom they had imbibed and formulated their compilation. Who are they? Chandesha Dhareshwara Rupa Mitakshara Halayudhaucha Sri Krishna Bachashpati Dharma Rashesha Kritas Tatha Sri Karashula Pani Govinda Lakshmi Dhara Tattakara Acharya Churamani cha Bhatta Bakkani Teshang Subimrishya Kurmo Granthang Vibadarnavo Shetu Bandham. The principal topics. What are the sum and substance of Vibadarnavo Shetu? The principal topics dealt with creation of the Varnas, eulogy of the monarch, Raja Prasangsa, Rinadan, that is law of death, Daibhag, that is inheritance, and judicial procedure in details, law related to evidence, Shaksha Vidhi, mortgage, Adhi, dispute over boundary of property, Sima Vivad, violence, Shahosh, theft, steo, Aswami Vikraya, or sale of an article by one who is not its legitimate owner, Datta Pradanik, or desire to get back an article already given away, Bak Parusha, or hurting other sentiments with harsh words, Kritanushoy, or dissatisfaction after purchase of an article, Obhopetya Susrusha, or refusal to adhere to an instruction after accepting it, Duta Samabhaya, or dispute arising from dice play, Danda Parusha, or litigation arising from physical assault, Stri Sangrahana, or dispute over molestation of a woman, Prokirnako, or disputes arising from scattered topics, etc. Thus, it is evident from the content that almost all the principal topics related to several types of litigations discussed in the ancient legal text had been elaborately dealt with in the Vibadarnavo Shetu, our present manuscript, which I have already shown you. The compilers hardly expressed their own opinion. They did not make any comment while discussing these topics. On the contrary, they were content with quotes from the ancient text, which presumably in their opinion will frame the current political system intended to be introduced by their appointing master to govern and consolidate power in India. And in the concluding verse, that is the colophon, the compilers mentioned in the concluding verse, the compilers mentioned their names. I have already quoted, but once again I am quoting from their original quote. Baneshwaro Kriparamo Ramo Gopalo Krishna Jivakhoi Bireshwaro Krishna Chandra Sri Gauri Kanta Kanta Bidhanoi Sadvi Kali Shankaro Samo Sundaro Krishna Keshavo Sangoi Sita Ramo Sangaisha Krito Grantha Sfuratu Shabhaya. Sfuratu Shabhaya. Itanek Bishayo Basi Viddad Bandandopo Burnita Vibadarna Tyakyo Grantho Sampurnatangato. Now, apart from the manuscript preserved in the Asiatic Society, Kolkata, there are also a few other manuscripts of Vibadarnavo Shetu available in Bengal and other parts of India. These manuscripts also deserve careful attention, but before delving deep into the details of other manuscripts, we must discuss the identity of those 11 authors who played a pivotal role in framing the foundation of modern Hindu law and jurisprudence. Most of them I have already mentioned have been forgotten. And that is why I had chosen the term unsung in the title, unsung authors of the manuscript. You may remember it, unsung for them. I would salvage the details of only two of them. One is Baneshwara Vidyalankar. Who was he? Born in 1700 in Guptipara village of Nodia district of Bengal, Baneshwar was tutored by his father, Ramdev Tarkobagish Chattopadhyay. He became an erudite Sanskrit scholar in course of time and was famous as Baneshwara Vidyalankar. After a brief stint in the court of Maharaja Krishna Chandra Rai of Nabadvip, he became court poet of Nawab Ali Baddi Khan at Murshidabad. Finally, he got patronage from Maharaja Navakrishna Dev of Shobhabaja in Calcutta, then Calcutta. Backed by Navakrishna, he came in contact with Governor General Warren Hastings, and under his instruction, he, along with other 10, compiled Vivadaranyaka Setu in 1775. He, along with his associates, compiled along with his associate compilers used to receive honorarium, that is Chatushpati Vritti, from the British. Baneshwar was a great scholar and composed several books: Chitrachampu, 1774, Chandrabhisheko Natakam, 1775, Devi Stotram, Taras Putram, etc. Another Pandit or compiler scholar is Ram Gopal. Born in first half of the 18th century in Nabadvip in Bengal, Ram Gopal was an erudite scholar in Sanskrit and introduced studies on Raghunandan in Nabadvip. But the most important feature of him, Ram Gopal, is that as a courtier of Maharaja Krishna Chandra Rai of Krishnanagar of Bengal, he spoke in favor of widow remarriage based on arguments derived from Shastras long before Vidyasagar, Ishachandra Vidyasagar propagated it. This is very significant. That's why I mentioned it. He was appointed by British to assist in the usage of Hindu Shastras, presumably the compilation of Vivadaranyaka Setu, and he also monthly honorarium from the government. He has composed several books on Sriti Shastra like Prashchitra Nirnay, Tithi Nirnay, Daya Nirnay, and many others. Now I draw your attention a few other manuscripts titled Vivadaranyaka Setu, preserved in Sanskrit Sahitya Parishad, Kolkata. They are 5 in number, out of which one is almost complete excepting 5 folios. Its accession number is 2907. The date has been mentioned in the text of the manuscript itself, Shakabda, that is Shakabda 1710. The redeeming feature of this manuscript is its detailed and systematic list of contents along with the number of verses. This is a feature resembling a modern text. I just quote a few: Varnadi Srishti 222, Varnanang Vritti 311, Rajo Prasangsa 1313, etc. Occasional variations from the manuscript of the Asiatic Society is also noticed. There is a complete sentence before the name of the compilers, which is not to be found in the manuscript of the Asiatic Society. What is that line? Iti viddat virochite Vivadaranyaka setu keti bongo nidhi dandado eko bingsho atro kirtita. You note the word bongo nidhi. Presumably by bongo nidhi, the compilers referred to the ruler of Bengal. Another manuscript, accession number 2837, is incomplete, as it lacks benedictory words, Mongolacharan, and the first two chapters, Varnadi Srishti Tattva and Rajaprasamsa. This manuscript, Vivadarnava Setu, starts with Rinadan, law of date, Atho Vivado Padani, Tatra Monu, Teshamaddam, Rinadanam, etc. In the concluding line of the manuscript is claimed to be complete. Itteko Vishayo Bagvi Viddad Brindo Pukurshita Vivadarnava Sangeyang Grantha Sampurnatangpato. Another manuscript bearing accession number 5580 is incomplete, despite the fact that it started with the bearers Mongolacharanam. We come across with another manuscript with accession number 6196, starting with folio number 5, and though bereft of the benedictory verse, coincides with the serial of Asiatic Society manuscript in containing the first topic and in mentioning the name of the compilers. The compilers, however, claim that the manuscript is complete. Vivadarnava Setyakya Sampurnotangata. Another Vivadarnava Setu manuscript with accession number 6197, though otherwise complete, Vivadarnava Sangoyang Grantha Sampurnotangata, with mention of its date, Satabda 1714, Shokabda does not mention the name of the compilers. Now let me draw your attention to another printed version. These are all manuscripts which I have discussed. Now there is another printed version of Vivadarnava Setu, and that is a very queer production also. In the title page, it has been mentioned that this manuscript has been recovered from a library of Lahore through courtesy of its principal Jala Prasad and composed by the scholar Chudamani, who adorned court of the great king Ranjit Singh of Punjab. That is why I said this is very queer. Maharaja Rajasri Sri Ranjit Singh Shabhalankaro Chudamani Srimad Vidyad Virochitam. Labopuri, within bracket, Lahore Virajamano, Madhusudano Pustakalaya Dhaksho, Parupokaro Nirato, Pandito Jala Prasadat Asaditam. In its introduction, it has been stated that 11 Sanskrit scholars, Pandits, had composed this Vivadarnava Setu. But it is interesting that those Pandits had drawn the attention of the great king Ranjit Singh of Punjab, who was so impressed by this compilation that he ruled his kingdom to the tenets of Vivadarnava Setu. Raja Rajeshwara Sri Ranajita Singho enang granthang samudbikko swarashtreshu etadanustarena samastang Nayokarjang Nirabahayat. It was also stated that since all the topics of litigation, that is the Vivadabodhas, starting from law of date, had been discussed elaborately in this book, it makes the administrative functioning quite smooth. Jeshang sammak vigyano matreno samasta nayadhisha karjang niborung shakyante loka. Now just look at the timeline. Ranjit Singh was born in 1780 and Vivadarnava Setu, under the supervision of Warren Hastings, was compiled in 1793. So it is not feasible for Ranjit Singh to get these Pandits at hand to compile this compilation. It was also mentioned in the introduction that as the impact of the compilation on legal issues was on the wane, Maharaja Ranjit Singh got it printed to preserve it for the posterity. Nowhere in this printed edition there is any trace of Warren Hastings or any colonial maneuvering is found. But presumably the manuscript of Vivadarnava Setu, after compilation by the 11 Pandits, supervision of Warren Hastings, was sent to different provinces of India for the sake of good administration, and subsequently was picked up by Ranjit Singh. Another manuscript of Vivadarnava Setu has been traced in Sri Raghunatha Temple Manuscript Library of Jammu. Interestingly, its author has been named as Acharya Churamani, but it is incomplete. It has been said Dharmashastram Apurnam. But the text reveals that, excepting a few changes, the text is almost identical with Asiatic Society version. Now, I have come to the concluding portion almost. Before concluding, a passing reference may be made to another manuscript, which is closely associated with the manuscript which I am discussing so far, Vivadarnava Setu. The second manuscript is named as Vivado Bhangarnava, composed by Jagannath Tarko Panchanon, and this is closely associated with Vivadarnava Setu. We all know that in 1784, Sir William Jones established the Asiatic Society in Calcutta, which had been as the first Indological research center in India. We also know that Jones himself was deeply involved in pursuit of study and research on Sanskrit and Persian works. Like Hastings, Jones was also aware of a code of law which will cater to the need of delivering justice to the Indians in all disputed matter. But thoroughly disillusioned about the Halhead's translation of Vivadarnava Setu, which did not conform to the original, because original text both literally and thematically, because of its translation from Persian via another oral Bengali, Jones himself took upon himself the cudgel of getting a foolproof code of law by a Sanskrit scholar, Jagannath Tarko Panchanon. Jones said that out of 11 scholars who compiled Vivadarnava Setu, 5 were alive in 1788, and one scholar, Pandit Gaurikanto, corrected Jones' copy of the Vivadarnava Setu. Under the supervision of Jones, Jagannath Tarko Panchanon of Triveni of Bengal compiled Vivado Bhangarnava in 1796 AD. A letter from Jones to Arthur Lee, dated 28 September 1788, will substantiate that Vivado Bhangarnava was the outcome of Jones' painstaking effort. I quote from Jones: "I am superintending a new work of the same kind, but more extensive on the plan of Justinian's Digest, which some of the most learned among the native lawyers are compiling. They are stimulated to diligence by handsome monthly salaries, and I shall not just have a look at it, and I shall not, if my health continue firm, think of leaving Asia till I see the completion of work, which will be the standard of justice around 10 millions of men, as I trust, secure their inheritable property to their descendants." Unquote. Just look how determined was Jones to get this law book done by the another scholar, Jagannath. It was a Vivado Bhangarnava was translated by Colebrook as a law in 1797. Colebrook, in his preface to the digest comments, I quote from Colebrook, another modern digest, the most remarkable among the modern digests, the most remarkable are the Bibadarnava Setu, compiled by order of Mr. Hastings, the Bibado Shararnava, compiled at the request of Sir William Jones by Sarvaru Trivedi, a lawyer of Mithila, and the Bibado Bhangarnava by Jagannath, which is now translated. Unquote. Vivado Bhangarnavo is, which is preserved in the Asiatic Society, is incomplete. It contains Rinadano section and Vriddhi and interest. Now, those who are interested may look into an article published in the Bulletin of Asiatic Society by a young researcher, Srimati Sneha Agarwala. The topic of the title of the article is The Unsung Early Contributors of Asiatic Society. This is January 2020, volume 49, number 1. If you are interested to look to have more information about this Vivado Bhangarnavo and the scholars, you may have a look at this article. From this discussion, now I come to my conclusion. I think I have exhausted my time also. From this discussion, it is apparent that with a view to implement efficient and justice-oriented administration, the British colonizers they might be, I don't refute that point, but at the same time, they utilized Indian scholars to frame an extensive code of law, which is also the foundation of modern Hindu law. It might be a strategic move to consolidate their rule, but at the same time, in the long run, it was beneficial both for the ruler and the ruled. Thank you. Namaskar.
What a wonderful lecture. Very informative, very interesting.
Thank you, ma'am. It was the excellent lecture. Couple of questions which I have. First thing that out of the 11 scholars, only two's information you could be able to collect. Yes. Remaining 9 is still.
Yes. Yes, I understand your question, and that is also my question, because about the other 9, only 11 out of 11, 2 I have salvaged, I have said, but out of 9, still no information is very scanty, except that article which I mentioned by Sneha. She's my research scholar also. She has delved deep into the problem, and she has come out with some information on Jagannath, Torko, Panchanon, etc. But about the remaining 9, there is no information right now with me. I am trying on that. We are trying from Asiatic Society to make a critical edition of this Vivado. Where their identity, we are still in dark. Yes, sir.
And another thing which I was interested in, that a comparative study of what has been the outcome of these texts and today's legal systems which we have adopted in the current India. So a comparative study or an article, at least from you, because you have dealt with the subject so thoroughly, that a comparative study will be possible.
Yes, I thought so. Yes, I also was thinking that that's a comparative study, but I was since 35 minutes is my stipulated time, I do not go into details. But precisely modern Hindu law is based upon these Shastric principles. There are some amendments during so many years after we got independence, etc., etc. But modern Hindu law is still now. If you go to the tenets of modern Hindu law, in say in inheritance, in law of death, etc., we are still following our ancient Indian Shastras, which is indeed a redeeming feature of our entire legal system. That sometimes we have made amendments just to cater to the need of the present era, present century. But in spirit and in execution, implementation part also, we are still dependent on our ancient Indian lawgiver. Even we are all aware that our constitution also has deep reverence for our ancient Indian lawgivers and Shastras. And if I get, and Sanghamitra told me that Tattvabodh lectures are, you also mentioned in your introduction that Tattvabodh lectures are going to be published in Tattvabodh. That I have read also, because at that time when I was in Vishwabharati, since we had also a manuscript resource center there, Tattvabodh was sent regularly, I have read. So if I get that chance, I will make in the concluding part a brief comparative study of the ancient Indian jurisprudence, that is Vivadandavo Setu and others also. Vivadandavo Setu, as I have already made, is simply a compilation. The compiler said nothing from their own, on their own. They simply quoted, this is from Monu, this is from Jaggobolko, this is from Harid, like that. So if I get that chance, I think I may, if I get that opportunity, I will add another, say 1 or 2 paras to show our indebtedness to our ancient Shastrakaras. And the manuscript also, I have chosen this because it is a lecture organized by National Manuscript Mission, which deals simply with these national treasures which were left into oblivion, which were equally unsung before the establishment of this National Manuscript Mission. So we are, in all aspects, we are indebted that not only these ancient manuscripts are explored, but we can also depend upon them, we can study upon them, we can research upon them to find out our ancient Indian Shastras, say, or Ayurveda, or whatever. They are invaluable national treasures. Thank you.
Thank you. We will eagerly wait for your paper. Thank you very much, ma'am, for this excellent lecture.
Thank you.
And I hand over more to Sanghamitra ji.
I'm fortunate to have the honor of proposing a formal vote of thanks for the Tattvabodh lecture so ably delivered by Professor Tapati Mukherjee. Professor Mukherjee's lecture this afternoon is an eye-opener. She has explained today in depth the action taken by the then ruler of India while introducing legal laws in their names, but